let's see. My recollection is public staff, you all had completed cross-examination. Is that the case?
One more.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and proceed. And Mr. Greer, I'll just remind you, you are under oath. Thank you for joining us again this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Chair Mitchell, we do have the one matter of the outstanding motion to move the show cause in.
Yes, and I appreciate your bringing that to my attention. So here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to allow the public staff's motion. So the motion for show cause and the associated exhibits are not going to come in. However, there will be a little bit of an exception there. Exhibit H to the show cause motion is a set of invoices from EnviroLink to the Carolina Village mobile home community. And in light of the invoices that were provided yesterday, those invoices raise questions. So I want those to come in. So those will come in as a commission requested exhibit. And so for purposes of the record, what we're going to do is the invoices that were provided by the company yesterday, and those are the invoices between EnviroLink and Currituck Water and Sewer. Those will come in as commission directed exhibit number 1, and the invoices that were exhibit H to the public staff show cause motion will come in as commission directed exhibit 2. I'm working to have copies of those invoices made so that everybody can see them, and they should be down here momentarily. So you can have your hands on them if you all don't already have copies of those. All right, anything else before we proceed?
I'm sorry, Chair, is Commission Exhibit 1 the Exhibit H invoices, and then what was Exhibit 2? I apologize.
Commission directed exhibit 1 are the invoices that were handed up yesterday by the company, and those are the invoices.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay. All right, with that, Ms. Coxton, you may proceed.
Mr. Greer, do you know the estimated cost of all of the additional work that Currituck needs to complete?
Currituck as a whole? Or can you, I'm sorry, can you specify what amount you're looking for?
So we have heard about a number of capital improvements and things dealing with deferred maintenance over the course of the hearing. My question is, can you estimate how much still needs to be done?
I don't have that number with me. It is on our capital plan. I'm happy to sit down with your team after proceedings and go through that if you'd like me to.
For the record, I just also object to the extent it's beyond the scope of Mr. Greer's rebuttal testimony that was pre-filed in this manner.
I think Mr. Greer has indicated that he does some amount of capital and financial planning for EnviroLink. Additionally, EnviroLink is the person who does all of those things, as Mr. Myers and Mr. Klein have testified to multiple times during this proceeding.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. Just historically and traditionally, the commission is fairly lenient and allowing sort of latitude on cross-examination. We will certainly give the testimony the way that it's due.
Thank you. And then my other question for you, Mr. Greer, is on the witness stand, you should have a copy of Currituck's response to DR 30.
I do.
Did you participate in preparation of that response?
I did.
And is one of those attachments the chart of accounts that Currituck provided?
Yes, ma'am.
And I just would like to confirm, is yesterday you indicated that it was a general chart of accounts, or is it a Currituck specific chart of accounts?
This is a Currituck specific chart of accounts. I'm sorry. If you want me to clarify what I was talking about yesterday, it's general for Currituck.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. And are the company's responses to DR 30 to the extent that you participated in its preparation, still true and accurate?
They are.
Okay. Chair Mitchell, I'd like to mark Public Staff DR 30 as Public Staff Greer Rebuttal Exhibit Number 1.
All right, Ms. Coxton, I have well, talk me through this. There are a number of documents in front of me. Does this exhibit that you've asked to mark include all of these documents?
Yes, ma'am, it
Okay.
does.
And I just want to make sure that there's no confidential information in this document or in these documents.
Mr. Greer, can you review the company's response and indicate whether anything should be confidential?
Yes. Can I have?
When it was filed, I would just indicate that I believe the chart of accounts is what was the only item that was marked confidential in production.
Will you confirm, counsel, that it's appropriately, that it's appropriate, if it's not redacted in this set of documents, please let me know.
Yeah, I don't have a copy in front of me, but I don't believe it is redacted.
It is not redacted.
It is not redacted?
Correct.
Yeah, the chart of accounts is not redacted.
Okay.
And it also, it's not indicated as confidential in the actual document. So there's not going to be a marking on the page. I'm just
Okay,
providing that for
I'm
context.
with y'all now.
Okay.
Okay.
That's correct. When we filed it on the public staff's share site, we just marked it in the title and in the file as confidential. We didn't put any marking on the document itself.
Okay, so it's the company's position that this account list is confidential.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any reason to object to that designation at this point in time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna mark this. See, it's 1, 2, 3 pages. It's confidential. And I'm gonna write confidential on each page. Ms. Coxton, are you gonna ask the witness any questions that you believe will elicit information that's confidential in light of the designation?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, then we won't go into confidential session. If you feel that you're asked a question that elicits confidential information, do not answer, let me know, and then we will go into confidential session. But let's proceed. And then when assuming this comes into the record, we need to make sure it's appropriately redacted for the transcript, for the public version of the transcript.
Yes,
All right, let's get it marked. Ms. Coxton, one more time, how would you like it marked?
Public Staff Greer Rebuttal Cross Exhibit Number 1.
Okay, the document will be marked for identification, PS, Greer rebuttal, cross-examination, Exhibit 1.
And then the public staff has no further questions.
Got it, okay. All right, redirect to your witness.
Mr. Greer, yesterday afternoon, you were asked some questions about the accounting, the ledgers and that type of thing. And you were asked about an item having to do with a company that is not Currituck Water and Sewer, having to do with Carolina Village, as I understand it. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Have you looked through your records and accounts, and do you think you've identified what the public staff was asking you about?
I have.
And what have you found, and what is your conclusion?
There are accounts. Sorry, let me back up. The accounts are appropriate and in order. They are in line and are appropriate with the NARUC chart of accounts that I believe was mentioned yesterday by multiple times. Without having knowledge of the accounts, I could see where someone may be confused and think they were inappropriate. However, as I just stated, I would be happy to sit down with public staff and go through those and show them why they are appropriate and they're not a mistake.
But did you find an item on the ledger, for example, that had a reference to another company? And can you explain to us why that was there and why you maintained then it's appropriate if you do.
Yes, we did. It's because in the past, while we were transitioning accounting systems, we felt it appropriate to take care of transfers or equity items that came from one company to another and to record those in the new ledger and not just do away with them. We felt like it was prudent from an accounting standpoint that we could follow the trail from the past practices to the current practices, which are consistent with NARUC.
So in your opinion, to the extent that you found what you think you were being asked about, that was not an error, it was an intentional, and you believe it's correct?
That's correct.
No further questions?
All right. Good timing. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, Mr. Greer, I'm going to ask you about these invoices because I think you're in the best position to respond to these questions. Yes, please. Oh, can I have that? Sorry. We don't have a ton, so just share them around. Yeah, give one to Kim and then make sure each council gets one and put one in front of the witness, please. Mr. Greer, do you have the invoices that were provided by council yesterday to the commission? Does he have those invoices?
In front of him, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay, you
have.
got those, and then you have the invoices that we just handed out. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay, so I just want you to help me understand what at sort of first glance to me looks inconsistent. So so my understanding is, or at least the testimony provided in this proceeding is that, well, let me ask you this. What's the date on which Currituck Water and Sewer acquired these assets?
Carolina Village assets?
Yes.
I believe it's in the record. It was in May 2023, but I didn't start with EnviroLink until the end of January 2024. So that was before my tenure here.
Okay, that's fine. May 2023. You've got Currituck Water and Sewer is the owner of these assets. So if I look at the invoices that I handed up today, these commission directed exhibit number 2. If we go to, let's find an invoice let's go to, I don't know, October 2023, for example. So there's an invoice dated October 31st, 2023. And if you look at the pagination up on the top, the exhibit marking, it says page 41 of 49. You see that?
Yes, ma'am.
So it looks like to me, EnviroLink is invoicing Carolina Village MHP LP. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
For the labs on the wastewater side.
It appears to me the same.
Okay, and then you turn the page and EnviroLink, and then sort of at page 42 of 49, invoice also dated 10/31/23. EnviroLink is invoicing Carolina Village for labs. So it's additional labs. That might be page 2 of the same invoice. I can't tell. Oh, it's a different invoice. And then keep going. You've got another invoice, 10/31/23, EnviroLink's billing Carolina Village for, the description includes Carolina Village Pump Station B, Carolina Village D Pump Station, Carolina Village Water and C Station, Carolina Village RR1 Sewage Disposal. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
So am I correct that EnviroLink was billing or invoicing Carolina Village MHP at a time when Currituck Water and Sewer owned the system?
My understanding, having not been there at the time to speak directly to the practices, but my understanding is that these invoices were being produced that should have been to Currituck Water and Sewer, and nothing had been paid by the mobile home park since the transition.
Okay, but what does the money show? I mean, you're the CFO now, and I'm assuming you have access to all of the historical records. Does the money show that these invoices were retracted and not paid? Did money?
Correct.
I mean, so let me, hang on, let me make sure the record is clear there. Your review of the historical record shows that these invoices were not paid?
Correct. I have not seen any payments in this time frame from the mobile home park.
Okay. Why did the invoices continue for so many months?
I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Did you do any investigation into that?
I did. The former CFO was no longer with the company, and I did not meet the former CFO, and they were the one who billed this way. I can't speak to their professional opinion on why they did it, though.
Okay. But your testimony today, you're satisfied no money came in from the mobile home park in response to these invoices?
I've not seen any payments from the mobile home park for these invoices. That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, since you say it that way, have you seen any payments from the mobile home park subsequent to May 2023?
I have not seen any payments subsequent to May 2020. I'm going to caveat that, Chair, because the review, I was looking at also the same invoices later in the year. If there were payments made in May, it would have been for the invoices sent before May. So I do believe there was a payment in May for either a February or January invoice, but subject to check and refreshing my memory on that. I don't believe any of these invoices have been compensated since May.
Okay, and I thank you for clarifying that because my question wasn't entirely clear. So thank you. Okay. All right. What do you know? So then we've got invoices from EnviroLink to Currituck Water and Sewer, the same time period. And there are charges that pertain to Carolina Village. The description of the charges doesn't necessarily match what I see on these invoices from EnviroLink to the mobile home park, but nevertheless, they're charges for service at Carolina Village. Do you see that the same way as I do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, and what can you tell me about how much Currituck has paid EnviroLink?
$547,851 from May 2023 to current. Till the period ending 9/1/2024, which is yes, to the period ended 9/1/2024.
So you're gonna need to say that again so I can write it down and a little bit more slowly. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. $547,851 from May 2023 to September 1, 2024.
And that's a very specific number.
Yes,
So I
ma'am.
assume there's backup to
Yes, ma'am.
that number. And is that backup in the record?
It's not.
Okay. Well, I would like to ask that it be provided as a late filed exhibit.
Yes, ma'am.
And what can you tell me about how much of that $547,851 is relevant to the Carolina Village Mobile Home Park?
That is Carolina Village.
So it's only so it
Yes.
includes no other
Yes, ma'am.
system. Okay. And does that include both the capital expenditures and O&M?
Yes, ma'am.
Expenditures? Okay. Does that include salaries?
It includes.
I'm sorry, let me retract that question. Does that include, well, I'll just leave that one alone. All right. Well, we will take a look at the backup on that number when it comes in. Okay. That's all I have.
If I may share, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we get you what it is that you're looking for. You're looking for proof of each payment, a ledger that states that each payment was made. What is it exactly that the chair would like to see?
Well, if there are, so there, these invoices, and is it that payment was made in response? Well, let me ask let me ask your witness, and then I'll address your question. How was that payment made?
It was based on the invoices.
Based on invoices that
Yes.
are
That yes, ma'am.
included in this?
Yes, ma'am.
So, so then if you could just indicate, which of these invoices had been paid, that would be sufficient for my purposes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me see, questions from Commissioner Hughes?
You mostly asked it, but I guess we'll get it with this information. But yeah, I think Mr. Klein said in part, like these were paid. I think your phrase was in part. So I guess whatever documentation you'll give us will show the part that was not paid.
Yeah, I assume that we can show you what amount was paid on which invoice. And that way you'll know
Yeah.
which invoice it applies to and the amount that was applied to each invoice.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes.
Good morning, Mr. Greer.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Kind of a broad question. You do the books for Currituck for all of their operations?
Yes, sir.
And there are two particular systems that we've talked about. I think one is Eagle Creek, and then we've got Carolina Village.
Yes, sir.
And Eagle Creek, for which you have a certificate of public convenience and need. And on Carolina was saying that it wasn't actually a utility. And I wondered if you just comment on the differences in the accounting treatment on Currituck's books between the two entities.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. So with Eagle Creek being a certificated utility, and now let me address it this way. Currently, we are treating them under the same principle that they are both now falling under NARUC chart of accounts. Even though Carolina Village is not certificated at this point, we are moving forward from an accounting standpoint, and an accounting standpoint only, let me be very clear, as treating it like a certificated utility, so that when the public staff or commissioner or anyone else makes request of us, we can present a uniform chart of accounts standard with the recommendations of this commission in Rule 35, I believe.
When did you start to do that?
In the last 90 days. As I said, I came on board at the end of January, took some time to try to not only learn EnviroLink's practices, but to then learn our 160 clients' practices, which Currituck Water and Sewer is one of them, and then started making changes over the last several months.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Greer, I'd have just actually two more questions. Did you just say 160 clients?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Roughly.
And do those clients engage in different, I mean, what are the differences that you have to understand from client to client?
So we have governmental, we have regulated, we have private homeowners in the Outer Banks who have basically a septic tank that is permitted, and we provide them with service. So we have a broad range of clients. So understanding that, we don't record the books for a septic tank customer, but I still have to understand their practice, so understand how we record it on our books. But our clientele has a very wide range of ability and of accounting practices.
Okay, thank you. That answers that question. One follow-up for you on the invoices, and I should have asked this. So to the extent that the payment that you've indicated that's been received from Currituck Water and Sewer is only partial payment for what has been invoiced, is it reasonable, or is it appropriate for the commission to assume that what the only outstanding amount owed by EnviroLink to Currituck Water and Sewer is reflected in these invoices that have not been paid?
I want to clarify because you said owed by EnviroLink to them. I think you meant owed by them to
Yeah,
EnviroLink.
that's right. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
You have all of the invoices in your possession, and all of those invoices are complete, and the what is owed is in those.
Okay. All right. All right, let's go to questions on commissioners' questions, and we'll start with the public staff.
So, Mr. Greer, were you personally involved in paying any of these invoices?
Can you clarify what you mean by personally involved? I mean,
Did you actually mechanically write a check, transfer funds? Did you do anything yourself?
we have staff that does that.
Okay, so you can't speak personally to having done any of these yourself.
Right. We have staff that prepares those
Okay.
checks.
Are you familiar with, you reviewed the public staff's testimony, correct?
I did.
Are you familiar with the information in the public staff's testimony detailing the dollar value of funds transfers between counts owned by EnviroLink and counts owned by Currituck?
I'm familiar with that section of testimony, but if you'd like to ask me a specific question, I would like to see a copy of it, please, to make sure I understand correctly.
Sure. So I think my question, and you may not need to see it actually, is how do funds transfers relate to the payment of invoices that the commissioners have been asking about?
I'm going to speak to what we're doing now. I'm not going to speak to previous in this answer. If you need me to, I can, but I think it's more prudent to say that now we are invoicing them. The money is being paid over. Usually we invoice, it is sent to leadership, and then there's either, or there's a check cut to EnviroLink for the correct amount or for the amount that they are paying on that invoice, subject to questions.
So if we were looking at records to try to match these up, would we see an invoice amount that matches a particular, so if we have an invoice here for $222,000, would we see a payment for exactly 222,000, or are we going to see like one chunk of money and then have to figure out what that chunk of money is paying for?
It depends. It depends on the payment you're looking at. There may be payments that where money was paid for multiple of their systems. And then we break that down on the accounting side to show what invoices it pertains to.
Okay. Can you speak to what is included on invoices, or what is in this basket of things? On the invoices, you have Carolina Village transaction and proceedings. What is that? What's in that bucket? And for reference, an example of that is on the invoices that y'all provided, invoice 3,000.
I would just object. I think we're getting beyond the commission's questions.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Documents.
Yes, that's it. Yes, so that is for multiple things in that bucket, including I'm sorry, am I okay to answer?
I would just wait.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. He was getting ready to answer.
Sorry.
No, apologies. So for the invoice 3,000 under Carolina Village transactions and proceedings, contract line item number 7, in that bucket would include what we bill under the contract for time for Mr. Myers, for myself, for our accounting staff to prepare for these hearings. If there are any other things coming before the commission during that month that we are billing for, it's listed out. I apologize. It's in that bucket. Sorry.
Is there an itemized accounting available for what's in these buckets?
We do have that itemized in our internal records for what goes into each invoice, and that record is available to Mr. Klein and Currituck at any point to view.
So in order to have a complete sense of what is in these invoices, we need not only the invoice that we have, but also documentation to show how the amounts in each individual contract line item are calculated. Is that a fair statement?
I don't disagree with your statement.
Okay. Give me just a moment, Chair Mitchell. If the public staff sought those detailed, the support for what goes into the buckets, would the company be willing to provide that? Or would we be told that those are EnviroLink's records and Currituck does not have the ability to obtain those records?
I would defer to our counsel, as that seems like a question for them and not for me.
That does seem like sort of a data request. We'll take that under advisement and respond to you if that's appropriate, Chair. But
So
I will
just-
indicate that we responded to 200 data requests in this case.
I'm aware of all the data requests that have been propounded and answered
But
and
we're
objected to, and for which, you all have sought motions to compel.
Right.
Let's do this. Please ask your question again. I want to hear your question, and you respond however you need to respond, and then I'll go from there.
Mike, is EnviroLink or Currituck, depending on the hat, willing to provide the supporting documentation to arrive at the contract line items? And Mr. Greer has indicated that there are a number of things that go into one of these contract line items. Is Currituck willing to provide those, or is this a situation where we would be told that the documents supporting what goes in the invoice are not in Currituck's possession, they are in EnviroLink's possession and are therefore not available?
Let's hear your answer to the question.
Thank you, Chair. My answer would be I would want to confer with our counsel to review any request we get, and I would advise them and let them answer you in an appropriate manner.
Okay.
And if it please, yeah. You heard.
Well, in what context are you being heard here?
To respond that if you give us just a few minutes to check, then we can provide the answer and hopefully move on.
All right, well.
I would also just add, Chair Mitchell, that Currituck has never objected to providing information that is Currituck's, that's in the possession of EnviroLink. It's been when we've asked for information that EnviroLink has generally outside of the scope of things that would relate to Currituck Water and Sewer.
Well,
So as I
counsel-
sit here at the moment, I can't anticipate that there would be, to answer Ms. Cox's question, any objection for that purpose. I don't know, as a non-accountant, the breadth of the information that would have to be provided to back up every single item in every invoice, but I anticipate that there would be an objection to getting information that relates to Currituck Water and Sewer on that basis.
At issue is the blurred line between EnviroLink and Currituck here. So the question is a fair one. I don't take.
We'll provide the information. We'll provide, the answer is we'll provide it.
The answer is you would be responsive to the public staff's request.
Yes.
Okay. To the extent, well, we've got a little bit far afield here. Mr. Greer, let's keep going. Ms. Coxon, do you have anything further for the witness? All right, you all may, well, let's let them ask, and we can come back to the witness if necessary. Let's let him ask his.
Mr. Greer, you were asked about the information that is gathered and reported for like 160 clients that EnviroLink has. Is that right?
That's correct.
Those are municipal clients, those are public utility clients, and those are unregulated.
That's correct.
All right. Are a lot of those where the ownership of those entities has a limited staff and the EnviroLink does most of the work?
That's correct. We have many systems that have no staff or may have a manager that oversees the utility, and EnviroLink acts in the capacity of operator.
And in your view, your knowledge, is that unusual with EnviroLink and its clients?
No, that's the normal practice of people who hire contract operators.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Would you like questions?
Yeah, it was just a,
For council, we're going to go through this again, and you all will be able to ask questions on Commissioner Hughes' question.
yeah. And hopefully this is just a version of a question that I should have asked, but you were asked whether you cut the checks or you make the transfer. And is it you working for EnviroLink or you working for CWS? Who do you know? Because you're the receiving end of this money. So do you know who is cutting? You said you have staff. So is your staff is EnviroLink staff making the payment to EnviroLink?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I should have clarified that when I was asked. So we are on the receiving end of the money. I'm the one looking over the invoices. I'm the one making sure that they are accurate before we send them for review. The invoices are then reviewed and reviewed with not only our staff, but reviewed with the financial experts that ClearCurrent has in their group as we send it to Mr. Klein. So once those are reviewed, it comes back to EnviroLink as approved. And then we typically have an accounts payable person for all of our companies that we do their bookkeeping for. And that is in the normal course of business that we write checks for our clients that we do bookkeeping for because they don't have bookkeeping staff. We are their bookkeeping staff. And so they would write a check.
Okay. And I understand that it's much more complicated than this, but EnviroLink is paying EnviroLink in some form, not reviewing and approving, but they are paying, you are paying yourself. Okay. Thank you.
Just for the record, I'd have him not answer audibly. I think you were just nodding your head.
Yes. Sorry. I apologize, Commissioner. I was looking at you and conversing.
Questions on Commissioner Hughes' questions? Okay, Mr. Finley. Okay. All right, Mr. Greer, you may step down and you are excused. We appreciate your testimony today and your participation in this proceeding.
Thank you, Chair and Commission.
Ms. Coxon, I'll take a motion.
I would move that the cross-examination exhibit that we identified for Mr. Greer be moved into the record.
All right, there being no objection to that motion, I will allow it that public staff Greer rebuttal cross-examination exhibit 1 will be allowed into evidence.
Okay. And just one clarification, and when the commission was asking for documentation to support the invoices. Is there anything in particular that the commission is seeking, a particular type of document, or just support in general, just for our note, for purposes of our notes?
You're right. Well, my direction to Currituck is that we want to be able to see what has been paid. And so it should be readily ascertainable by the commission, which portions of these invoices have been paid. Now, to the public staff's point that certain of these additional services are lump sum, and it's difficult to tell what the charge pertains to. That's of concern to the commission. And to the extent that that information is retained by EnviroLink, and the detail for each of those line item charges on the invoice can be made available to us, I would like for it to be done. So, all right, with that, let's see. Mr. Finley, you may call your next witness.
Mr. Myers, back to the stand.
All right, Mr. Myers, I will just remind you, you are under oath.
Mr. Myers, did you have filed in this document on your behalf on October 28th, 2024, rebuttal testimony consisting of some 70 pages?
I have.
Are there additions or corrections you need to make to that testimony this time?
I know there was questions about exhibits on, wasn't it references on exhibits? Is this the one?
Oh, well, this is the 28th.
Okay.
This is the.
Yeah, then no.
All right. And if the questions set forth in the pre-file testimony were asked of you today, would your answers be the same?
That's correct.
And did you submit, in addition to this refile rebuttal testimony on October 28, 2024, exhibits consisting of some 30 of them?
That sounds correct.
Chair, we mentioned we would ask that the pre-file rebuttal testimony of Mr. Myers be copied in the record as a given order from the stand, and that his rebuttal exhibits be marked for identification as pre-marked in the October 28, 24 submission.
All right, that motion will be allowed.
He's standing for cross.
All right, public staff, you're up.
Mr. Myers, your rebuttal testimony includes a fairly lengthy recitation of the history at Carolina Village. Would you agree?
It does.
And if you would, turn for me to page 22 of your pre-filed testimony, rebuttal testimony. And there's a second bullet there, and that bullet deals with an amended and restated APA.
Yes, ma'am, I see it.
Okay. And at the end of that, so I'm going to read the statement, and it says, on February 7, 2022, CWS, CVWWT, and CGNC executed an amended and restated APA to address changes related to a change in ownership of the mobile Carolina Village MHP, not the assets themselves. Is that correct?
That sounds, yes, that's what I'm reading.
And at the end of that statement, you reference C motion to show cause at 6, Exhibit E at 64-116.
I see that.
What are you referring to?
Can I answer that after I just saw a typo in here? I don't know if it's
Sure,
important.
That's fine.
So where it says EGNC, that should be ETNC. Oh, I'm sorry, where it says EGNC in that paragraph, it actually should be ETNC. I believe that, and subject to check, I would go back and think I was talking about the show cause in this proceeding.
Okay. Chair Mitchell, the public staff would like to designate our show cause motion as public staff Myers rebuttal cross-examination exhibit number 1.
Chair Mitchell, I apologize. I have to object. I think this is just a backdoor attempt to get around the motion they made yesterday. The motion is in the record. They can show him. It does not need to be part of the evidence. His testimony is what his testimony is. I think there's no reason to include it. These are legal arguments of counsel. The show cause motion is a legal argument of counsel. It's not evidence.
The information in the show cause was verified by Mr. Franklin. And I mean, Mr. Myers is referencing it in his own testimony. I would think it needs to be part of the record. It's relevant to this proceeding, particularly his testimony. He cites to it as well as to pages in his own response.
Mr. Franklin is not here, cannot be cross-examined. And to my knowledge, I believe Mr. Myers is really just referencing what he's responding, that it was also discussed there and referenced there. Again, legal arguments of counsel verified by a person who's not here for cross-examination.
The public staff is happy to tender Mr. Junis for cross-examination. He was present on the site at that time. And he can adopt Mr. Franklin's verification if necessary.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do. We are going to allow in Exhibit E, which is it's one of the asset purchase agreements here. We've, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. We have no objection to that either. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Mitchell, may we have a brief recess, please?
All right, we'll take, let's go off and we'll be off the record until 10:55.
That's fine.
We're
That's
pushing
plenty of
hard
time.
to get finished by
ma'am.
12 o'clock.
Thank you.
back on the record. Public staff, we're still with you.
Chair Mitchell, with all due respect, you allowed the exhibit that was referenced in the rebuttal of Mr. Myers in the record. I might add that in the public staff's testimony, it references other exhibits in the show cause motion. And we would ask that those exhibits that have been referenced in the public staff's testimony also be admitted into evidence.
Point me to the testimony so I can see which exhibits those are.
Page 10 of Mr. Rieger's testimony, exhibits F and Q. Yeah, exhibit Q to the public staff's motion to show cause. All right.
Please do.
Page 27. Exhibit P of the public staff's motion to show cause, which is on page 20, which is referenced on page 25 of the joint testimony of Fiesel, Rieger, and Junis. Okay. Okay, exhibit J to the motion to show cause, referenced on page 30 of the joint testimony of Fiesel, Rieger, and Junis. Exhibit I to the motion to show cause, referenced on page 32. Exhibit 26 to the Myers affidavit, which was attached to the staff's motion to show cause as referenced on page 42. And if I haven't already, I think that exhibit P, exhibit B. I think I don't understand that. Okay, exhibit O to the motion to show cause, referenced on page 48 of the public staff's joint testimony. Exhibit L to the motion to show cause, referenced on page 49 of the public staff's joint testimony. Exhibit N and I to the motion to show cause, reference on page 50 of the public staff's joint testimony. All right. And exhibit A of the motion to show cause, reference on page 123 of the joint testimony of public staff witnesses Fiegel, Rieger, and Junis.
All right, Ms. Holt, let's do this. The exhibit to the motion that has been, to the public staff's motion for show cause that has been allowed in was referenced in Currituck's testimony. To the extent Currituck has referenced any other motions to the exhibit, any other exhibits to the motion to show cause, and you all move to admit those, I will admit them. The show cause proceeding has been stayed. Discovery was stayed. I resolved numerous disputes between the parties about discovery. We have stayed those. The show cause the proceeding to show cause can be scheduled at any point in time by this commission. And if and when we get to that point, at that point, discovery begins anew, consistent with the commission's order. And you all can put the evidence on that you need to put in the record at that time, given whatever is at issue between the parties. The commission's understanding, based on the representations of the parties to date, is that a settlement agreement was reached as to, for purposes of holding the show cause, the request for show cause and to appoint an emergency operator in abeyance. We've done that. We stayed the discovery in response to the motions to compel, and that proceeding is being held right now. Again, the exhibit to the show cause motion was allowed in because Myers referenced it in his testimony. To the extent they've referenced any of the other evidence that was part of that proceeding, in my view, my read is that they're sanctioning that evidence. They're giving up their right to fight over that evidence. So it's in. So to the extent that there's any other evidence cited in their testimony, and the public staff moves to allow it in, then I would be consistent in my ruling. All right, with that,
Chairman, if I may, just so that the record is clear from our end, we appreciate that, and that's fine. I just wanted to also note that to the extent that it wasn't referenced in Currituck's testimony, and it was referenced in testimony of the public staff's witnesses, the opportunity, again, this is just for the record, the opportunity to present that has now passed, it's come and gone, and it could have been included as exhibits to those witnesses' testimony. Again, just so the record's clear from our position. Thank you.
do you want to be heard, Mr. Freeman?
I respect the commission, the chair's ruling, and I want to be heard on a related but different matter.
Okay, go ahead.
Some of the exhibit B, for example, is contracts that Mr. Myers signed. I don't want the NOVs that were received by Mr. Myers. And so if we could, while he's on the stand here, go through them, at least we can get the ones that are addressed to him or signed by him into the record that way. But I don't want the chair to feel like I'm undermining her ruling, but I know exhibit B is chock full of contracts that Mr. Myers himself signed, for example. So we could go through those very quickly, I would expect.
I guess I'm not, to make sure I'm following you, are you suggesting that you use those, whatever contracts that you want to get into the record or you feel is evidence that the commission should consider, use that as a cross-examination exhibit on the witness? Well, that's certainly within your discretion, and to the extent council has an objection, council will make it at the appropriate time and we'll deal with it then.
I would propose to start that process now. But again, I don't want the chair to, a lot of these are going to be identical to the things that just came up, but if I can, I'll start my line of questioning along those lines right now.
Well, so let's just do this. Cross-examine the witness and object when it's appropriate to object.
Now, approach.
Is it referenced in his rebuttal testimony? Okay, if there's actually a point to make with him that he needs to be crossed with it, that's fine.
Good morning, Mr. Myers. In front of you is a notebook. First page is entitled Rule to Show Cause. You see there's numbered tabs 1 through 17.
I do.
Tab 1. Yep. Tab number 1 was historically the Rule to Show Cause Exhibit A. You understand? So, and Exhibit B is got the tab 2 behind it. So if you would look with me, please, behind tab number 1. Thank you. I appreciate your position. All right. There is now Exhibit A has some confidential information, which Ms. Holt is going to hand you. I don't want to, that's confidential information, so please treat it carefully. All right, so attached behind tab 1 is a public version of the following. And then you have the confidential version in the folder in front of you. The public version is the April 11th, 2022 cease and desist letter sent to EnviroLink. The April 29th, 2022 response of Libby Jenkins, the public staff's May 24th, 2022 correspondence to EnviroLink. June 10th, 2022 response of Libby Jenkins. You're the president of EnviroLink. I think you're familiar with those letters and received them. Is that correct?
I'm just gonna,
Sorry, I'm going to object real fast. If all we're doing is essentially asking him, did you sign these? Did you receive them? All he's trying to do is authenticate documents. If there's questions that relate to his rebuttal, that's fine. Otherwise, I think all we're trying to do is authenticate documents and get them in.
I meant to be clear that I was going to authenticate these documents to get them in, and that was the purpose. And I apologize if I didn't convey that clearly.
Then I object. If there's not a line of questioning that relates to his rebuttal and it's simply asking him to authenticate documents that's outside the scope of his rebuttal, it's too late for that. And again, it's another backdoor to get more documents in that they should have already gotten in through other witnesses.
And I believe these correspondence, for example, the cease and desist letters relate to the very issues that he discusses in his rebuttal about, is he utility? Is he operating? Is he allowed to? It's sort of the heart of the case.
Where is it referenced in his rebuttal?
Right. Let me respond to council.
I
All right. As I've already said, the commission has a long tradition of being lenient on cross-examination for better or worse. Just trying to uphold traditions around here. So we also, for better or worse, have a practice by certain parties to this commission to do just what Mr. Freeman is attempting to do here, have a witness authenticated document simply for the purpose of getting it in the record. That has been allowed before at this commission. But this is what we're going to do. Time is of the essence. I've said this yesterday. I felt like I was emphatic. I can be more emphatic if necessary because we're now, I don't even know how many more hours down the road here. We're ending at 2 today. If we need to come back, we can. I have a mountain of work. Mr. Finley needs an order. That 270-day clock has run on his order that he's waiting for. I also have mountains and mountains and mountains of work. I've worked hard for you all in this case, and here we are. We're still disputing the same evidence, Y'all have had a long time to prepare for this. You've had a long time of commission time. You've gotten a lot of effort from a lot of folks here. Let's go. Let's get this done, get the record developed. Every single second I sit in here, it gets more and more frustrating. And you can see that and you can hear that. So please, this is costing a lot of money that somebody's going to pay. This is costing a lot of time that's prejudicing many other parties that we have to deal with and regulated entities. And these people need to be doing work on other dockets. So let's go. I'm not going to say it again because I have already said it enough. Get it done. I have got a long list of questions for this witness, and we're not leaving here until he answers my questions. And so if we have to stay here until, and we need to come back tomorrow, we need to come back Monday, we need to come back Tuesday, we need to come back Wednesday, we're going to do it until I get my questions answered. So at this point, get it done. Get organized, tighten up your arguments, get it done. Because we're going to get through this case and I'm going to get my questions answered. And if I don't get my questions answered, then I'm going to go back and start writing this order in this state of mind. And I don't know who that benefits other than me. So let's go. Get it done. Get it done. Ask, get it done. And if you want to object to everything, object. But we're going to get the record. I'm going to rule on every single objection so that the record is clear and it can be appealed if necessary once we actually get an order out, assuming we ever get there. Let's go.
Chair Mitchell, if I may, just to expedite it, I would make just a standing objection so I don't have to keep objecting, if that's okay with you. I would make a standing objection that I appreciate the history and the way that the commission handles things. My issue with the motion to show cause exhibits is primarily in this sense related to the fact that we asked to do discovery and were told we could not. I will not make a further objection so long as the commission can note standing objection to all exhibits and all information contained in the motion to show cause or the exhibits thereto.
The commission's understanding is that you all entered into a settlement agreement on the show cause, on matters related to the show cause. Nothing has been provided to the commission that suggests that that settlement agreement is otherwise no longer standing, but except for the behavior of the parties here. So if we want to, if the show cause needs to be tried, let's get it on the calendar. That somebody should have moved for that, and it should be on our calendar. So I will just leave it there, but let's, your objection is noted. You keep moving forward with your case, and let's go.
Thank you, Chair.
The public staff has concluded their examination of Mr. Myers.
Okay. Let's redirect. Is that no redirect? Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Mr. Myers, how much litigation is Currituck or is EnviroLink currently involved in North Carolina?
If I can ask one clarifying question, make sure I answer your question correctly. We have a couple of like auto accidents, type litigation that are going on. Are you interested in that at all?
All of it.
Okay. 3 cases.
Can you specify those cases?
EnviroLink has a case against Currituck County that has a counterclaim associated with it. We have another matter involving an accident where one of our employees was rear-ended and pushed into a vehicle ahead of him. That case is currently under litigation. And we have another case where there was a fire at one of our clients' facilities, and the insurance company has filed claims against a number of parties, including EnviroLink.
Which facility was the fire? Did the fire?
It's High Hamptons up in Cashiers, North Carolina.
Is it a wastewater facility?
The facility that was caught fire was actually a pavilion out in the community.
What are the claims against EnviroLink?
There was a fire hydrant that was close to the facility that when the fire department, and I don't know how much I should get into, but that the fire
A
department.
claim is public record, so just tell me what the claim is.
The claim is that the fire hydrant didn't operate
Okay.
when they connected to it.
Okay. Mr. Myers, there is on record with the commission in a different docket, an asset purchase agreement between Outer Banks Kennekeet Associates LLC as the seller and Currituck Water and Sewer LLC as the buyer. It's dated July 18th, 2022. Are you familiar with that APA?
I am.
What is the status of that agreement?
It has currently been terminated.
It has been terminated. Okay, so that agreement is no longer in force and effect.
That's correct.
Has another agreement been entered into with that same seller?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is Currituck Water and Sewer in negotiations with the Outer Banks Kennekeet Associates LLC for the assets that were the subject of that July 18, 2022 agreement?
There has been discussions, but there is nothing formally in writing or anything.
So
like
does Currituck Water and Sewer have any intention of attempting to acquire that facility, those assets?
Yeah, I certainly there has not been any decision made. It's not been presented to the board, but the board is gathering information, I guess is what I would say. I don't, could it lead to an asset purchase agreement potentially, but there's not been any decision on that matter made yet.
And when you say the board, who is the board?
Currituck Water and Sewers Board, which would be myself, Gary Albertson, Julius Bedford, Thomas Henley, and Ken Raber.
Would that be the board of managers of Currituck Water and Sewer Holdings LLC?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many water or sewer systems does EnviroLink operate?
I think as Mr. Greer testified, it's in the neighborhood of 160.
In North Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
What about outside of North Carolina?
There's approximately 15 to 20 outside the state of North Carolina.
The same personnel, does EnviroLink use the same personnel, the operations of those systems that aren't located in North Carolina?
No, they have each location has their own personnel.
What about for administrative services like accounting and bookkeeping? and
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So kind of
Regulatory
the back
support.
office stuff is, administered by the same personnel.
Okay. The wastewater treatment plant that is at issue or has been mentioned in this proceeding that is planned to be installed at Carolina Village. Is Currituck Water and Sewer currently in possession of that treatment plant, to your knowledge?
It's still located at the Moyock Regional Site. In order for the plant to be mobilized, the existing driveway to the Carolina Village site, he could not maneuver on that driveway, so he had to construct a new access road into the facility.
Okay. So that plant is not subject to the litigation?
It is not.
Okay.
Mhm.
There have been questions about whether that plant can achieve compliance, given its history for Currituck County. Should the commission be concerned about the capabilities of that plant to comply with applicable environmental regulations?
If I could, I'd maybe tell a little bit of the kind of the history of that facility, take a minute to talk about that. The Moyock, kind of how EnviroLink got involved in the Moyock Regional Plant was it had a history of non-compliance for years prior to EnviroLink. The county's facility was treating to an effluent quality for BOD and total suspended solids and achieving a level of around, I'll call it 40 to 45 on the effluent, with a limit of 4. So that'll give you kind of a range of how the county was, the capabilities of the county's facility. When we were engaged by the county and came in, we were able to get those levels knocked down to in the range of 5 to 10. But again, we weren't able to achieve the permit limit of 4, but we were able to reduce the effluent or reduce the pollutants in the effluent by 85 to 90%. And then since we have no longer been engaged with the county, the effluent limits coming off of that facility have returned to kind of the previous levels. And in terms of the DMRs that are being submitted by the county, just the notes on the DMR explaining why they are not compliant, it simply states that the plant does not work.
Well, that's my concern. Does the plant work and?
Oh, that's not our plant. It's the county's plant.
Okay,
Sorry.
so then I'm confused. So I'm interested in the plant that y'all are, the mobile plant that's going to be moved. Is that plant capable of achieving compliance with applicable environmental regulations?
Yes,
Okay. And was that plant not utilized in Currituck County?
it was. And that's how we were able to get the 85 to 90% better effluent quality.
But compliance was never achieved. I mean, that's my understanding in Currituck County. Is that correct?
In Currituck County.
Right.
So
You don't have a record of this plant's being able to achieve compliance. Is that correct?
we have a record of this plant being able to achieve achieve compliance with the limitations that will be applicable to Carolina Village. Yes. I know I feel like this is I'm being very technical with the argument. I apologize that, but permit limits, range, they have a pretty wide range.
Here's the reason for my question. I mean, this site, DEQ's lost its patience. DEQ feels like I do right now. It's lost its patience at this site.
Agreed. Same here.
The state of the repair it's been in for a long time is bad, and DEQ, my perception of what's in the record is DEQ is frustrated. What I want to know is if you all are given the CPCN, if we award this CPCN to allow this to Currituck to operate these assets as a public utility, I want to know that you've got a plan to achieve regulatory, one, to treat wastewater, and two, to achieve regulatory compliance. I'm just not, help me understand, why should we be
So-
confident in the plan to use this plant that didn't achieve compliance at Moyoc? How is it going to achieve compliance down here in Carolina Village?
Two comments to your question is, one, the limitations, the limits that the plant has to achieve are not the same limits that are applicable to the Moyoc Regional Facility. And two, that is part of what the engineer scope who is designing the process is for the Carolina Village site. He has to be assured that the plant is going to achieve compliance, because he's not only certifying that with his seal, but he also has liability for compliance after the plant gets put into operation.
Well, I understand that, and I understand the testimony that's been given, an explanation of the engineered EOP that is planned here, but ultimately, isn't it the responsibility of the utility?
Ultimately,
What I'm hearing is that we're gonna just, so now we're gonna defer
no,
compliance
no,
to
no.
the, and acceptance of liability to some engineer who is not here. And I don't know who the engineer is, but he is or she is not here proceeding in this proceeding, putting his or her license sort of in front of us so that we can evaluate his or her competence to perform adequate and reliable utility service. All right, next question. My read of the status reports is that there's now a delay because there needs to be an infiltration and an I study conducted. And so we've kicked out the plan a couple of months to perform that. How confident are you in the timeline that's been put forth to the commission in the latest status report about getting a permanent solution in place here?
we feel confident about the timeline that's put in place, and
It just seems like there's a lot up in the air that this engineer who's going to accept all responsibility for compliance has to identify here. I mean, there's the I&I study, and then there's sort of whether the site whether the actual physical characteristics of the site can do what it has to do to manage this wastewater.
one point of clarification on your second comment, the hydrogeologist has already reviewed that and has concluded that the site is appropriate.
But the engineer has to rely on the opinion of the hydrogeologist. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then the engineer designs the infrastructure that'll go onto the site based on the hydrogeologist report.
Okay. Well, ultimately, we're the CPCN awarded. Currituck Water and Sewer is responsible for compliance. and
Agreed.
Some unknown engineer who's going to put their license on the line is not in front of us, and I can't ask him or her questions about the plan to treat wastewater at this facility. All right. We've heard some about Currituck's. I think you testified when you were up about the county's plans for a planned community that's going to be adjacent to the Carolina Village. Who's going to provide water and sewer service to that community?
So I don't know that there's anybody right now slated to provide sewer, because nobody has approached us. To my knowledge, nobody's really approached the county. So we do know that the county system that's up there has a limited capacity and is unable to serve the entire needs of that project.
Yeah. So I misunderstood your testimony. I thought this was a county sanctioned development, which was.
It is. It is.
Well, is there a real estate developer involved?
There's several parcels involved. It's, I would say, unique from other master plan communities that I've seen, in that it does have the county as the sponsor behind it. Happy to get, there is actually a web page they've developed that describes.
I'm just curious about water and sewer. Is Currituck County going to select the water and sewer provider, or why isn't the county providing water and sewer service here?
County would provide water, but not sewer. County just doesn't have the capacity or the ability at their current site to be able to service the whole area.
Okay. there's been a lot of discussion about the FARs and about Albemarle Environmental, and I'll just sort of stick to referring to them as Albemarle Environmental. And based on testimony given in this proceeding, Albemarle Environmental or one or both of the FARs was involved at the Outer Banks Kennekeet facility and at the Eagle Creek facility, and they were involved in this Carolina Village facility. Is my understanding of the testimony correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and my understanding is that EnviroLink retained Albemarle Environmental in 2022 after being aware of the FAR's performance at the Eagle Creek facility. Is that correct?
Certainly, yes, we were aware of the situation down at Kennekeet, Outer Banks, Kennekeet. Yes,
Well, I'm
as
talking
far
about
as involvement in it.
and Eagle Creek as well, right?
No, Eagle Creek was at the same time they were hired for Carolina Village. I mean,
So they were involved at Eagle Creek, and then you hired them at Carolina Village.
no,
right.
no. The same time we hired them for Carolina Village, they were hired for Eagle Creek.
Okay, so you were aware of their performance at Outer Banks Kennekeet, and then you hired them at Eagle Creek. And when I say, let me be clear, when I say you, who retained the FARs for the Eagle Creek system?
EnviroLink did.
Okay, and then EnviroLink retained Albemarle Environmental or the FARs for Carolina Village.
That is correct.
And did you have concerns about the situation at the Outer Banks Kennekeet facility?
We did, and I know our manager had discussions with other people down in that kind of in the Outer Banks region that have had experience with the FARs. And, you know, we read in some of the testimony that the FARs were put into a pretty difficult, I forget the exact verbiage in the testimony that I'm referring to, but that the FARs were put into a difficult position because the owner wasn't making investments and they were doing the best they could with what they had. And if I can, and I heard your frustration yesterday, and one of the comments you made that struck with me was that, you know, EnviroLink was trying to defer responsibility to the FARs, and I want to make it clear that that's not what we're trying to do at all. I would hope that the commission would be left with the impression that EnviroLink does take responsibility for the FAR's actions, and that we worked very hard and diligently with DEQ after some situations came to light, concerns expressed by DEQ, to put an action plan in place with DEQ that allowed DEQ to have confidence in the information that they were receiving and how we were going to manage the FARs until we could get somebody else in place there.
Well, my recollection is Mr. Klein's testimony is that he made the decision to terminate Albemarle
He
Environmental.
certainly sent a notice to EnviroLink that said, hey, please.
So it was his decision and not EnviroLink's.
Yes, he put us on notice, but certainly actions were already being put to do that.
Well, all right. What actions?
Discussions with DEQ about how they wanted to, how their suggestion, I think I testified yesterday that we had asked whether they wanted us to have a certified operator or if we could terminate the FARs.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, the FARs, why was there any moment's hesitation when there was a pipe shooting untreated something or other into a body of water or a permitted lagoon or whatever the actual status of that area was? I mean, why would there be any hesitation? And I guess I'm hearing you say in response to my questions, there was discussion with DEQ, but you're responsible here. And you have an ORC and you have staff 24/7 at Eagle Creek. So clearly EnviroLink has some staffing or the ability to retain staffing. I just don't understand the hesitation.
So
Help me understand the hesitation.
Yeah, the hesitation is the staff at Eagle Creek does not have the appropriate licensure to meet the state requirements for Carolina Village and Eagle Creek. So certainly when it came to light, we did have immediate discussions with DEQ to understand their concerns, what their concerns were. Not necessarily, and I will tell you that these conversations were going on prior to the February visit with DEQ because of some concerns that DEQ had expressed about the FARs outside of anything we were dealing with.
Well, regardless, if conversations had been going on with DEQ prior to February, they weren't terminated until when? September, August or September? The record
of
is not entirely clear there, but it was
They were
months.
relieved of their duty as
Right.
an
And
operator
it's
and
more
response.
time to allow the FARs or an Albemarle Environmental to remain in place after you had concerns.
Yeah, and during that time, we were coordinating with DEQ about, making sure they were comfortable with what was going on in terms of our recruiting and getting somebody in there with the appropriate licensing and making sure that the information that was being provided to DEQ, that they had confidence in what was being provided.
All right, Mr. Myers, so what I understand is proposed here is we've got a utility that has a sole employee, Mr. Klein, that's asking for permission to acquire this system and contract all services out to EnviroLink. And EnviroLink will provide the operational services as well as the sort of the administrative side, the reg support, the financial support, et cetera. Already what we're seeing here is you've got invoices from EnviroLink to the utility that that I personally can't make sense of. Granted, they were just put in front of me yesterday or today. I can't understand. There's additional services for which EnviroLink is charging the utility, and I can't understand. I mean, it's a significant sum of money. Have no idea what's being spent there or why. I'm hearing concerns from the public staff, or perhaps this is my impression of the public staff's concern that they too want to get information, and when they ask questions, they're concerned or they have actually received the response. This is EnviroLink's information. It's not Currituck's information. Therefore, you can't have it. We can't exercise effective regulatory oversight in that manner. Help me understand how this proposal that you all are making here is going to enable the commission and the public staff, and you understand the way these two agencies work together. You've been around here long enough. How are we going to exercise effective regulatory oversight and ensure that this utility is providing adequate and reliable service as it would be required to do under North Carolina law, given this construct and given the problems that we're already seeing in this proceeding?
And subject to check, I don't think EnviroLink has failed to provide any information that the public staff has requested. The other thing I would offer is that, we talk about 160 clients. I would offer to you that approximately 40 of those clients are municipal clients that go through annual audits on their own that we do participate in. And EnviroLink is currently going under, it's a 2-year audit that is being conducted by what I would call a top 5 audit firm in this country. And so far through that process, there's not been any findings.
Findings as to?
I'm probably talking outside of my realm, but as you go through the audit process,
well, that's good information to hear, but that doesn't really respond to my concern. And you've said today with respect to the FARs and your discussion with the environmental regulator, you didn't have on staff, or you couldn't get to an operator with the appropriate licensure to replace the FARs. Well, the utility, that's not acceptable. I mean, the utility's got to have that staffing in place. Sufficient, whatever the reg says, sufficiently to ensure or achieve compliance. So your hesitation or your inability to, your one, either EnviroLink's lack of staffing or lack of ability to contract with staffing meant the FARs or Albemarle Environmental is there for many months. And I guess I just wonder, how are we to be confident that EnviroLink has the adequate staffing resources to ensure that this utility is going to operate as we expect it to, and as North Carolina law requires it to?
So if I can make a suggestion,
just answer the question.
So
that would be helpful.
Provide you guys with and maybe we can do it as a late file exhibit, a staffing plan for how we have been addressing that issue and how we intend to continue to address that issue.
Just answer my question right now.
So we have hired staff that are out there right now, and there are uncertified staff that are currently going through the certification process out there in order to back those up so that if there's ever an issue with a staff member in the future where we have to take action, we can move more quickly to replace them.
Um,
And if I can, I know there was some dialogue yesterday also, and I think Mr. Greer mentioned it earlier, is a number of our municipal clients operate very similar where they do not have any employees within their departments. And I know a number of the Class C utilities in North Carolina operate under kind of the same model where they don't have any existing staff members.
is it Currituck? I mean, at this point in time, Currituck Water and Sewer has 420 residential customers plus 2 non-residential customers at the Eagle Creek system. With the, if the CPCN were granted here, that would be an additional, 184 customers until the county relieves you or whatever, lifts the moratorium if and when the county gets there. And then you've got CPCN applications pending for 2 other service areas. Let's assume the commission were to allow those to move forward. I mean, that's a lot of customers. So are you telling me the Currituck's plan is to operate as as we would expect a Class C system to operate?
Certainly we have, no, my reference was just to reference existing Class C utilities.
All right, I want to ask you also about some testimony you put in the record here. I'm going to refer you to page 67 of your rebuttal testimony. And you're making some points about you respond with frustration and disbelief about the public staff's recommendation in this docket, but then you go on to say
Did you say page 67?
yeah, it's all the evidence of CWS's and EnviroLink's ability, including but not limited to praise from residents of CWS's service areas. The public staff continues to raise issues without providing any supporting evidence. But this is where what I want to ask you about. You say, especially after Hurricane Helene's destruction of Western North Carolina, this state is in dire need of entities willing to own and operate water and wastewater systems. Currituck Water and Sewer isn't operating this system, is it? I mean, EnviroLink is, right? And have you, will you answer that question?
I want to read my statement.
My question is, Currituck Water and Sewer wouldn't be operating this system, and it's contracting with EnviroLink to operate this system, right?
The Carolina Village and Eagle Creek systems, is that what you're speaking to?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so just sort of this suggestion that the state is in dire need of entities willing to own and operate water and wastewater systems, that's not what's being proposed here, is it?
That's not a matter before the commission in this document.
Right. And, I'm certain you're aware of the impact of Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina, are you not?
Yeah, I've been out there touring it for several days and several weeks.
So, and I assume you're aware of impact to certain water and wastewater systems that are regulated by the commission.
I am.
And are you aware that personnel who are employed by those water and wastewater systems, who are located proximate to those water and wastewater systems, have been working night and day, sometimes after having lost everything they own, and even times having lost loved ones? They're out there. Those people who live there and work at these plants and work for these companies are out there fixing the damage that has been caused by this hurricane. Now, what happens when you have a system, and Matt, we've got one employee of the utility, and then something like a Hurricane Helene happens again? Let's hope it doesn't, but let's say it. And who's going to be out there fixing your system? Who's going to be out there? How are we going to be assured that EnviroLink's got people who are right there, who are right on scene, who are going to go and take care of the system, take care of the customers, even in the face of having literally lost everything they own? I don't take lightly the reference to Hurricane Helene in your testimonies. You probably can tell from the enthusiasm in my questions to you. But this is a really important point you're making here about service to North Carolinians. And so I need you to help me understand how you put in here, we're in dire need. We, North Carolina, are in dire need of companies that are going to own and operate when that is not what you are proposing here. Help me understand that. Just connect those dots for me.
I'm not sure I understand your comment about, that's not what we're proposing here.
Is Currituck Water and Sewer going to own and operate the system? It's going to contract with EnviroLink,
I'm with you, Nick.
who is, I don't even, you're in, at 160 other systems plus however many in other states.
And
You
I-
don't, you don't have, you're not on the, you don't have boots on the ground. You don't have, you're not, I don't understand how, you're not, this is a totally different model from owning and operating.
Yeah, so certainly that comment, I think, was in reference to the benefit of having EnviroLink there, where EnviroLink can mobilize resources from other areas to support, and we have in the past, support facilities when there's something like a hurricane.
But you didn't even have resources to get rid of the Albemarle Environmental that had a known problematic track record, especially with the environmental regulator.
We did not have, like, as we stated earlier, we did not have local resources
And
out
that's,
there.
okay.
So, but
All
we
right.
had, we did have boots on the ground. I mean, we have staff that were there. They just were not certified staff.
Commissioner Hughes? Questions on Commissioner?
Can you give us a moment? So, Mr. Myers, you responded to a question from the chair about the staffing changes that have been taking place. Is Currituck required to advise the public staff of those changes as part of the monthly status reports that they're filing?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I'd have to go back and look at, was it contained in the settlement agreement? Is that where I should look?
So are you not familiar with the requirements of the settlement agreement?
I don't have them. I mean, yes, I'm familiar with them, but I don't have them committed to memory is what I would say.
Wouldn't you think it's significant to know what EnviroLink is supposed to be including in reports that it provides to Currituck to provide the public staff and the commission pursuant to a settlement agreement?
I would.
But you aren't able to answer the question.
Not from memory.
I'll move on. Actually, I don't think we have anything else.
Mr. Miles, I want to ask you some questions about the FARs. After you approached DEQ regarding your desire to fire the FARs, did DEQ ask you to delay that action for any reason other than the need to have an ORC on site?
Yes, part of our discussions with DEQ was to be able to substantiate some of the claims that were being made by DEQ.
And yesterday you discussed certain regulations that restrict where an ORC lives vis-a-vis where the facility is located. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did this have an impact on why it took a certain amount of time to replace the FARs?
That's correct.
meeting the permit limits is not simply the result of equipment. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's processes and it's the processes and equipment.
And some of that is compliance is dictated by how that equipment is operated, correct?
That's correct.
What is this? That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Meyer, just one more question, and then we'll go back around, so you guys have a chance at this one. The agreement that was negotiated and entered into in 2021 between CWS and EnviroLink. There's been testimony given in this proceeding that was arm's length transaction. I know that EnviroLink had separate counsel from CWS. But at that time, at the time of the negotiations, you were the vice president of CWS and you were the president of EnviroLink, correct?
Yes, and I think I know where you're headed with your line of questioning, and I was hoping that you would ask me that question.
Okay. Well, my next question is this. I mean, have you heard the concerns of the public staff that they are unable to discern how compensation is awarded under that agreement?
I have.
And was any effort expended in this proceeding to help the public staff understand how compensation is awarded under that agreement?
I believe there was, but certainly would love to be able to sit down and, have our CFO and meet with public staff and kind of work through that. I think in answer to one of your questions yesterday, I would offer that in terms of the arm's length nature of the agreement, I did represent EnviroLink. However, I did recuse myself from representing what was at that point in time representatives from Currituck who were negotiating that contract on behalf of Currituck Water and Sewer.
And what representatives were those?
That was at that point in time, it would have been Jeff Hugness, Julius Bedford, and Thomas Henley.
Does Currituck have any employees at this point in time?
I don't believe so, but there potentially is one, but I don't believe so.
What do you mean there's potentially one?
There's an individual named Matt Kowalczyk that I'm not quite sure where he sits. He may be up in kind of one of the upstream organizations.
Okay. In general, just my review of the sort of corporate relationships that exist with respect to Currituck Water and that sort of feed into Currituck Water and Sewer seems complicated for the business. Can you help me understand why? I mean, why do we have so many different entities involved here? Like, why the need to be overly complicated with the corporate structure?
In terms of having a holdco over an opco?
Well, yes, and then the feed-ins to the holdco.
So, upstream of the holdco, there you have Currituck and Longleaf, and so this is what I would call a joint venture between the two entities.
And who owns Longleaf?
Ultimately, that flows up to a family trust.
Well, but it's right. It's Two Rivers, right? And then Two Rivers is controlled by a family trust. So it kind of, there's a lot going on here. And I'm not a corporate attorney. I'm just a simple utilities regulator, I guess mediocre at best. But why is it just seems overly complicated for what we've got going on here?
That was done on advice of counsel. So we had a corporate attorney that looked at it and they advised us on how to set that up, knowing, we would have different LLCs.
Okay. Well, in order to exercise effective regulatory oversight, this body and working, and the public staff as well, who represents the using consuming public, have to understand, the money in and the money out. And there has been, in my view, not the view of the commission, but my view is there's been confusion over that here. And sort of that the confusion gets compounded when then you add EnviroLink in, which is, I guess, the contract operator of the utility. I assure this body that were this CPCN to be granted and this utility to grow in terms of its regulated footprint, how do we exercise effective regulatory oversight when there's so much it just seems like there's such an impediment to allowing the sort of the regulators and the quasi-regulator to understand what's going on in terms of the transactions between these various entities.
Well, I think to answer your question directly, certainly have my commitment to have, I think Mr. Junis yesterday, his testimony mentioned trust, and I would agree with him on that. And so you have my commitment to try to build that trust with public staff. I know we've had, and I think you know this, I've had a longstanding good relationship with the public staff, and would say, look, I know that's deteriorated right now in part because of this proceeding. And
why that seems to be, I mean, I'd help me understand why it's gotten this way. It seems to be in the utility's interest to try to.
Yeah, my perspective on it is that, and I'm going to cast, and these guys on both sides are probably maybe not agree with me, but there's blame for this on both sides here. It's been a very contentious case, and I don't think it needed to be, in my opinion. I think we could have, to your point, could have used your time much more effectively by locking the technical people here in this room and telling them to solve the problem and get to the root of it and come to some agreement on it. That's if I was, and again, they may not agree with me over here to the left, but if I was in your position, I would direct us to go get the technical people in a room and to come back to you in 30 days with some type of recommendations. So, I mean, it should have been done before now.
Correct. I mean, I don't even know when this filing was made. We're in many, many months now of churn of commission time and
100% agree
regulated
with you.
time.
I think it's been unnecessarily controversial.
And so why should this commission not have the concern that this is how it's going to be going forward? Given what's proposed here, to have this entity essentially be the utility and have a utility sort of in name only at Currituck, and then this entity that's out here doing all the work, controlling the books, providing the reg support. And that's difficult to access, or at least that's my view of what the public staff is saying in terms of being able to understand the money in and the money out, which is the public staff's job.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to get clear answers about adequacy of service.
Yeah,
Why, given how it's gone so far over these many, many months, why should we have confidence that it's going to work?
So I'm going to look to Mr. Klein and make sure that he doesn't disagree with me with my statement, but I would.
Well, I want your statement.
Yeah, from my point of view, you have our commitment to do what's necessary to rebuild that trust with the public staff.
And you are who?
That's both. I'll say that both from EnviroLink side, and then I'm going to look in from Currituck Water and Sewer side.
Well, you can't speak on behalf of Currituck Water and Sewer at this point. You're just EnviroLink. But okay. All right. So back to the agreement. We've got Mr. Klein saying it was arm's length, and I have concerns when I see that you are VP of one of the entities and president of the other one. That's your senior executive at both, but you were involved in the negotiation of the agreement. And EnviroLink, EnviroLink is a whole lot of money is flowing to EnviroLink. At least in my very quick review of these, much more money. I mean, and there's more money flowing for administrative support than there is for operational support, which is concerning, particularly given the status of this, what we know to be the status of the site, given the record in this proceeding.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, I would concur with, I think, your point and even public staff's point that, the money would be much better served to be going to the facility versus matters like this.
Are you
Um,
blaming the public staff for that?
No, 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 no. I thought I was clear earlier that, this has been a very contentious case and that drives up the cost of these proceedings is my point there. In terms of, can you repeat the first part of your question there?
I don't even remember what it was.
But I mean,
I'm just trying to get you to help me understand why I should be.
oh, what the arm's
concerned
length na-
That the agreement is.
Yeah,
an
so I did
agreement, Given that you were a senior
that's right.
officer
so-
at both companies.
Yeah, so I did recuse myself. So a little bit of history there.
I'm sorry, senior executive at both
Yeah,
companies.
so I recused myself from negotiating any of I did not participate on Currituck Water and Sewer's behalf in any manner in the negotiations. That was completely held by the individuals I mentioned before and legal counsel for Currituck or for Clear Current, Moore Van Allen. I did represent the EnviroLink side of the discussions.
But how do you recuse yourself? I mean, are you telling yourself, all right, I'm not here in terms for Currituck, I'm here for EnviroLink. How do you recuse yourself when you're actually negotiating and I mean, that to me, you're not recused, you're in the negotiation.
I was in the negotiation on behalf of EnviroLink.
Okay.
I was not in the negotiation on behalf of Currituck Water Sewer.
And a lot of money is flowing to EnviroLink. That's the concern here.
Mhm.
And we don't have a lot of insight into how, why and how much is going to what.
I'm happy to provide that. Yeah.
But you were actively involved in the negotiation. So did you ever think about having someone else step in to negotiate, given that you were had a role as senior executive in both companies?
Certainly that's, you mean in terms of representing, not just me representing EnviroLink, but
Well, since you were since you're a senior executive in both companies and have duties and responsibilities that come with that to both companies, did you ever consider just stepping away and letting the lawyers go at it or letting somebody else
largely
do-
that's how it was done.
I mean, wasn't there someone else at EnviroLink that could have represented the company, your VP, for example?
That's correct.
And wasn't there, I mean, there was a P at Currituck at that point in time that wasn't you. Why were you involved at all?
Don't believe at that point in time Currituck had a president.
Well, you were the vice president, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Ken Raber was at that point in time. You're correct. Certainly, it's something in hindsight we could have looked at.
well,
from
why
my position-
haven't you all I mean, given the concerns that have already been expressed in this docket, why haven't you renegotiated the agreement just to keep things moving, to get things going, to get
certainly
set on the
those
right
are-
track?
Yeah, certainly there, I think as Mr. Klein testified, there is that is in process at this point in time.
But we have no evidence of that other than I mean, we would have no evidence of that other than Mr. Klein's statement saying it's in process and now you're referencing his statement. How, why hasn't this been done before now?
I would say that there's two reasons for that. One is, Mr. Klein showing up, being hired and, the role that he's fulfilling for Currituck Water and Sewer, that now that's a role that, things that can be transferred over to him.
And how much more money? I mean, how long is this going to take? How much more money is going to flow to EnviroLink under the terms of this agreement that was negotiated when you were a senior
So this is what's called
executive at both companies?
cost plus agreement. And it was envisioned to give flexibility for the joint venture, not knowing where.
I understand, but my question really is, things are in process. I've heard you testify to that now, and I've heard Mr. Klein testify to that. When will we see a revised agreement or a new agreement?
Yeah, I think it is in virtually final form. It's subject to, I think, a final review by Mr. Klein.
Has the public staff seen it?
It has not.
Is the public
and they-
staff aware of it?
They,
Uh,
I don't
I'm going to
know.
interpose a clarification here. There have been some discussions with the public staff. I think they are in the nature of preliminary settlement negotiations. So if, just be careful, don't.
That's why I was hesitant to answer that. But
All right. With that, I will stop. Do you have anything to follow up on?
Madam Chair, if I may, real fast. Yesterday, you had excuse me, and Commissioner Hughes, you had a question, I think specifically about the website. I just didn't want, and a link on it for payment. I didn't want you guys to wrap up your questions without having that, so then the public
Okay.
staff could ask questions
Okay.
on your questions.
Thank you. Do you have a response? Well, do you want to ask this witness about that question? Do you want to ask this witness the
Do you want me
question?
to go ahead and answer? Yeah, it was a dead link. It's what was called a dead link. It was set up just in anticipation. But it was a dead link and we've had them remove it completely overnight. So
Right. We'll see if there are questions on Commissioner.
So the first question, circling back to the response that you just gave to Commissioner Hughes, how long has that dead link been there?
I don't know that I can answer that. I can check and tell you when it was, we can track when it was first set up and answer that question for you.
Would you accept, subject to check, that that dead link was on EnviroLink's website when the public staff contacted EnviroLink about the billing issue at the mobile home park?
Subject to check, yeah.
So that's significant preparation time. Would you agree?
Agreed.
And then you mention some documentation that you contend supports the position that the agreement between EnviroLink and Currituck was at arm's length, correct?
Did I reference documentation? I don't-
Do you recall the company's response to data request 30?
I-
It was provided to Mr. Greer when he was on the stand?
You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I was just asking if you could identify the emails that the company provided in response to that.
Guide me a little bit, speed me up. Oh, I was asking her to guide me a little bit to speed me up.
So attached, so just to reiterate, this is the company's response to a public staff data request. Yes. Is this the support that is this what you contend supports that this was arm's length negotiation related to the agreement?
Yes, this is, I think my testimony and this information here support that.
Then when you were describing your opinion of the contentious nature of this proceeding, you said you felt that the technical folks should be locked in a room. Who do you want to lock in the room?
I would say the engineering, the representatives from the engineering division, the accounting division, and I forget the gentleman behind yours position, but along with Mr. Greer, any of his accounting staff, myself, our capital projects team, whoever the public staff would like to be in attendance.
And we've spoken extensively throughout the proceeding about the EnviroLink and Currituck agreement, correct?
We have.
Is it fair to say that one of the significant disconnects between the public staff and Currituck regarding that agreement is whether it should even be subject to commission approval?
I would agree that that's one of the issues one of the issues in this case, that the two sides appear to be there, where there appears to be a disconnect. Yes, ma'am.
And would you agree that a disconnect of that nature makes collaboration particularly difficult?
I would say it makes it difficult, but just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying.
I think we all agree with that. And just, do you think the when the people that are involved are unable to speak candidly to understand terms of an agreement, it makes collaboration difficult?
I just object. Are we asking hypothetical questions, or are we going to testify or ask the witness a question about what happened?
Overrule, answer the question.
I would, I guess the answer I had before, I would say just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying to have those discussions and be open. And I think part of, to Mr. Junis' testimony yesterday about trust is, I think there has to be trust by both parties. There has to be trust that, that the information being shared is, accurate and open and being transparent, but that the information also isn't going to be used in manners used for unintended purposes or, things like that. So I think there has to be, both parties have to feel that the information flowing back and forth is not going to be said a different way, be used for hidden agendas or be used for, things that the other party doesn't authorize.
Are you suggesting the public staff has a hidden
No.
agenda?
Oh, yeah, that's not, I'm speaking hypothetically, so
And would you,
philosophically, hypothetically and philosophically.
would you agree that Currituck has not provided any form of revised draft of that agreement to the public staff?
I would agree that that has not been provided to the public staff at this time.
Then you also mentioned that that trust is important for working these things out, correct?
I did.
Do you think that Currituck has been fully transparent and accountable when faced with issues from the public staff?
I can certainly see, and I'm thinking back through all of the dialogue going back and forth. There are, I would say, instances where, the public staff has asked for information and for, I would say for what I would call legitimate reasons. And it's not anything, and to be clear, I think EnviroLink has been responsive, but admittedly, there's some information public staff that has asked for that has been not provided, and I think not making justification, but viewed as outside the scope of these proceedings.
I'm trying to understand that that answer, Mr. Myers.
Well, specifically, I think there was information requested upstream of Clear Current that was requested by public staff that has not been, that Currituck Water and Sewer does not have possession of and was unable to provide.
I would agree. And that information specifically relates to the funding approval process and financial commitment of Bernhardt Capital for additional funding, correct?
As I recall, that was, I think, the public staff's concern.
I don't think we have anything further.
Mr. Myers, I just want to make sure I understood a Q&A between you and counsel for the public staff correctly. I believe I heard her ask you say, whether there were a difference of opinion about whether the agreement between CWS and EnviroLink is subject to commission jurisdiction. Did I understand that question? Is that, and you said there's a difference of opinion?
Yeah, I think there's two, and I may have to look to legal counsel on this. There's two paragraphs in the general statute that potentially could apply to this agreement.
So the contract, go ahead.
And I think there's also dialogue in the 1300 sub-zero, the settlement agreement that was reached that addresses the agreement.
Okay. And so is it not the case that, thank you for confirming that Q&A. Is it not the case that Carolina, that EnviroLink is going to provide all service for Currituck Water and Sewer, provide all operational service, reg support, financial support? I mean, that's what we've heard. That's what I have heard. Is that not the
Yeah,
case?
I think that's fair. Yes.
Okay. All right, let's see. Questions on commission. Let me see. Do you have any more questions on what I just asked? We're over time at this point, but
No, ma'am.
okay. Do y'all have any questions?
Good question. Mr. Myers, the public staff rebuttal exhibit regarding DR-30 includes a discussion of some of the arm's length nature and communications as to where those negotiations were going. That's come up, and that's correct, is it not?
That's correct.
All right. Now, without getting into the substance of any discussions that you have had that might have been deemed settlement discussions, besides the discovery and besides what appears on the record, there have been informal discussions between the company and the public staff. Some of those haven't been initiated by the company. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
How many times, if you recall?
I believe the most recent was last week, if I remember, but I think there was, prior to that, there was at least one, maybe two other instances.
Thank you. That's all we have.
All right, at this point, we have come to the end of the proceeding. Mr. Myers, you may step down and be excused.
Move exhibits.
Okay. Any objection to the motion on his exhibits to his pre-filed testimony?
No, ma'am.
I believe we had one exhibit that got into evidence through Mr. Meyer.
Okay. Let me rule on Mr. Finley's motion, and I will, there being no objection, I will allow it. So his exhibits to his testimony are in.
And then we had, when we were, the dialogue earlier about the exhibits that were referenced in the company's testimony related to the show cause. Without going through those, we would just move those in consistent with the chair's earlier direction and instruction.
Well, it's simply one exhibit, it's Exhibit E, right?
Okay.
Exhibit E.
Exhibit E to the show cause motion.
Yes.
And then the chair made Exhibit H, commission directed exhibit.
Yes. That one's already, we've already identified that one. Okay. Any other evidentiary issues that we need to clean up?
I'm assuming you're going to ask for briefs and or proposed orders.
Yes, we are going to hold the record open so that I can receive into evidence the filing we've asked for, which is evidence of payment on those invoices and the detail where it's available on the invoice line items on the administrative side. Did you want to be heard, counsel?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had everything that you were asking for to be late filed exhibits. I think some were filed, the EnviroLink invoices that were at your desks yesterday, we have filed those as late filed exhibits already. But I think I had a note that you wanted the Albemarle contract with EnviroLink filed as a late filed exhibit as well. Is that still the case?
Does that contract not appear anywhere else in the record?
It is, it's a great question. It was discussed or provided in response to data
was a data
request. I don't know that it is in the record.
Okay, let's
I'm happy to provide a copy in as a late filed exhibit as well, if you'd like.
do that, and I will do that, and I will.
Okay,
and
so
we will.
we will file the Albemarle contract and then the both the documents that indicate which of the EnviroLink invoices have been paid and how much of each, as well as the backup for the amounts that are discussed in the invoices.
Yes, that's
I
correct.
believe it may be very large, the backup. I mean, it's a substantial amount of information, I believe.
Okay.
So we may be reaching out to your office and your
Well,
staff to figure
just
out the
think
best way
about-
to get that to you.
Facilitating our review, ease of review. Okay. So with that then, the hearing is concluded. The record remains open. We'll close it when I receive the filings. I would like proposed orders 30 days from the availability of the transcript. You certainly can get them in as soon as you'd like, but no later than 30 days. And with that, we will be adjourned. Thank you.